Change leaders maintain trust and legitimacy. Leadership learning. On 16th January 1979, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran, departed Tehran aboard his royal jet, bringing an end to over 37 years of rule and 2,500 years of Persian monarchy. The departure followed months of escalating demonstrations, strikes, and civil unrest that had paralyzed the nation and undermined the foundations of his authority. He assumed power in 1941 after the Allied powers forced the abdication of his father Reza Shah, whose pro-German sympathies during World War II had alarmed Britain and the Soviet Union. His reign became characterized by ambitious modernization programs, including land reforms, women's suffrage, and rapid industrialization funded by oil revenues. In 1953, a CIA and MI6-backed coup overthrew Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, who had nationalized Iran's oil industry. The Shah was reinstated with expanded powers, deepening public resentment and embedding foreign influence at the heart of Iran's governance. However, these reforms were accompanied by increasing authoritarianism through Savak, the secret police, which became notorious for suppressing political dissent. The White Revolution of the 1960s, whilst bringing economic development, alienated traditional religious authorities and rural populations who felt disconnected from the pace and nature of change being imposed from above. By 1978, economic inequality had widened despite oil wealth, whilst corruption was perceived as rampant among the elite, creating a revolutionary situation. Religious leaders, particularly Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, exiled in France, gained influence through cassette recordings distributed throughout mosques. The urban middle class, intellectuals, and bazaar merchants united with religious conservatives in opposition. When government forces fired upon demonstrators in September 1978, killing over 100 in what became known as Black Friday, the fragile legitimacy of the regime shattered irreversibly. The final months of 1978 witnessed general strikes that crippled oil production, the lifeblood of the Iranian economy. Civil servants refused to work, and the military's loyalty wavered. Western allies, particularly the United States, remained uncertain, caught between supporting a strategic partner and recognizing inevitable collapse. The Shah's attempts at conciliation, including appointing opposition figures to government positions, came too late to stem the tide. When the Shah left Iran for what was officially described as a holiday to Egypt, few believed he would return. His departure created a power vacuum that Khomeini swiftly filled, returning from exile on 1 February 1979 to establish the Islamic Republic. The revolution transformed not only Iran, but reshaped regional geopolitics for decades. The events of January 1979 revealed profound truths about institutional fragility and the limits of imposed transformation. The Shah's departure marked not merely the end of a dynasty, but the culmination of a deepening crisis driven by systemic failures in governance, communication, and legitimacy. What appeared from outside as sudden collapse had been building through years of accumulated grievances, suppressed voices, and widening gaps between rulers and ruled. The Shah's departure was a signal, a moment that revealed the fragility of imposed transformation and the consequences of ignoring accumulated grievance. It marked a seculum shift where one generational order collapsed and another emerged. Leaders of change must learn to read such signals early and lead with the humility, foresight, and cultural resonance that seculum leadership demands. The revolution illustrated how economic progress alone cannot substitute for political participation, how repression breeds resistance, and how institutions that lose touch with those they govern become hollow structures vulnerable to collapse under unified opposition. Change leadership lessons. The Shah's fall offers enduring lessons about the architecture of sustainable transformation. Leaders of change succeed when they seek input from affected groups before finalizing plans rather than imposing predetermined solutions on those they serve. They must create safe channels that allow people to raise concerns without fear of retribution or career damage from speaking truthfully. Change leaders build credibility through consistent follow-through on commitments over time, making it possible to implement difficult changes when circumstances demand swift action. They design benefit distribution to create broad stakeholder support by ensuring that improvements reach diverse groups rather than concentrating advantages among the privileged. Leaders of change ground transformation in values that resonate authentically by connecting to genuine needs and cultural contexts rather than imposing externally driven programs. Summary leadership quote: Change ignored does not disappear. It accumulates, reshapes context, erodes trust and legitimacy, and eventually forces transformation beyond the control of the leaders who delayed responsibility. Application, Change Leadership Responsibility 1. Articulate a change vision. The fall of the Shah demonstrates how organizations falter when leaders anchor future direction in imposed modernization agendas rather than authentic societal realities. Articulating a credible change vision requires leaders to define the future experience the organization is committed to deliver before widespread resistance forces reactive concessions. When leaders ground vision in stakeholder insight and cultural awareness, they create coherence, discipline, and alignment across the organization. This approach does not deny uncertainty or complexity. It acknowledges them while remaining unequivocal about direction. A disciplined change vision becomes the reference point that guides judgment, exposes misalignment, and prevents strategic drift as conditions evolve. Leadership of change demands that leaders use vision to anchor transformation in shared values, ensuring organizational energy flows towards futures shaped by understanding rather than imposition. Leadership of change, final thoughts. Sustainable transformation requires leaders who maintain legitimacy through continuous dialogue, transparent decision-making, and equitable benefit distribution. Articulating a credible change vision requires leaders to define the future experience the organization is committed to deliver before widespread resistance forces reactive concessions. As AI and digital transformation accelerate organizational change, the risk of imposed technology-driven solutions disconnected from human needs increases exponentially. Leadership that maintains trust amidst disruption remains the enduring differentiator between transformation that succeeds and change that collapses under the weight of accumulated grievance. Find out more. Change Management Leadership, Leadership of Change, Volume 4.